let us all do we can to build a better future.
One of the things that I was talking about earlier this year with the global health crisis was the fact that schools were being closed down. Now, there were some very good reasons for that. You have a pandemic. We didn't know a lot about what was going on at that time. And the decision was made to close the schools down. My concern at that point was that we were going to start losing students right and left. That there were going to be students who who did not have internet in their home, did not have devices at home. There were students going to different schools in different classrooms, and there wasn't enough bandwidth in people's homes to get the students online and involved in online learning. And I said that this is a bill that's going to come due in about 10 years when we have young people entering adulthood and they are, and I'm going to use the term, functionally illiterate because they never went back to school. And that is a real issue. It's not just simply that you are having young people who don't have job skills, but there is apparently some very real evidence that dropping out of school, particularly for young men or boys or young men, that can actually shorten your lifespan. And the Journal of the American Medical Association recently came out with a study noting on November 12th, noting that the children losing education, losing instruction, will result in the loss of years of life. As a matter of fact, the findings state this decision analytical model found that missed instruction during 2020 could be associated with an estimated 5.53 million years of life loss. This loss in life expectancy was likely to be greater than would have been observed if leaving primary schools open had led to an expansion of the first wave of the pandemic. Now, I understand that many of the arguments for keeping things open, I frankly rely on anti-disability and anti-ageist presumptions about the value of people's lives. What I have been trying to point out from the very beginning, though, is that we have been doing a balancing act all the time, that the shutdowns and quarantines would lead to mental health problems, which we have seen all over the place. I said that the loss of the economy was going to lead to people becoming homeless, and that leads to loss of life. And I was also saying that this is a bill with these children. This is a bill that is going to come due. And what particularly disturbs me is that I understand that we may have been caught off guard, which we really should not have been, because we knew what was happening over in China. I didn't take it seriously myself, but you know what? That was not my job at that point. There were people who did have a job to do, and they failed to do it. There have been ways of perhaps managing this. The authors of this study are saying that the primary schools at least should have been kept open. The other alternatives here might have been to scramble and put together learning pods, students who could not safely or appropriately learn at home. The students who were most in need could have been put into pods, maybe into small classrooms, in study carrels with teachers. There could have been ways of handling this situation that did not just have a one-size-fits-all solution for every child in this country. And now we are really looking at significant problems. In addition to, I think we're going to have labor market problems. Mm-hmm. We are going to have children with health problems, with drug problems, but there is a fair amount of research worldwide that shows that dropping out of school is associated with a shorter lifespan, and we're going to be seeing it, and it's really, this is all speculation. These are models that are being put together by experts, but it's pointing to something that I have discussed earlier, and frankly, I think this nation dropped the ball when it decided that we could just move everything online. That was not the case. It is not the case. There are whole groups of children who will never go back to school.
Right. So here's something that I've
been seeing too, and I'm really worried about the long-term consequences and repercussions, and the fact that our Congress and our political leaders have chosen to drop the ball. I've been seeing as I drive to the studio, and I love driving to the studio. This has been a 3-year journey for us to have. I keep saying this. I love coming to the studio. It's great. It's awesome. But I'm seeing more and more tent cities under the viaducts and the bridges. I'm seeing more people homeless on the streets. I'm seeing businesses being shut down. You know, it's rather sad seeing communities being devastated. I'm also seeing, and again, I went to the store this morning, but I saw a lot of people clearly like who were homeless, but also suffering from mental illness too, on the streets. And this is the worst I've ever seen it in Chicago, especially in the fall season. And you know, the thing is, federal government, Democratic leaders, Republican leaders, universal basic income, Medicare for all, your people need help. And since this lockdown happened and then reopening, and now there's talk about doing another lockdown again, you're going to have a lot of this, you're going to have a huge problem on your hands where there are people who are going to be struggling economically, and there's going to be people who are going to be suffering mentally as well, because, you know, there's no relief for anybody. And these young kids are also going to be dealing with a lot of emotional scars as well, because who knows what they're seeing in regards to the family structure, and the fact that, again, they don't have a safe environment to go to, especially in regards to getting a higher education or furthering their education. This is going to impact us for years to come, not just 5 or 10 years, but going on much longer. And, you know, it's why could our government not take care of our people?
Think of these assumptions. I mean, the assumption was that all children have broadband internet in their homes, that all children are in homes that have multiple devices, multiple computers, multiple devices, where with cameras that function, that are up to date, that are fast, that so that they can interact with their teacher. The idea that there were going to be parents or grandparents or older siblings at home who could take time off to be with the children and supervise their learning and provide supervision during the day. Think of these assumptions. Whatever gave us the idea that this was that this is reality for most or, you know, for most kids in this country? That is not reality for most kids in this country, particularly when their parents are suddenly out of work.
Yeah, this is a situation that I think anyone watching the show would have seen coming, because it seems really obvious. But I suppose if you're in a power structure or a number of people, that maybe 1% of people perhaps that are wealthy and powerful, and you look at your kid's room and you look at your living room and you look at your TV that's in the other room, then you look at all the friends you've ever been to. I mean, if you're that closeted, you might reach the conclusion that, hey, everyone has computers. All the people I know have computers. Of course, they don't. And it should be obvious that they don't. I mean, I remember Fox News was a story they did, like, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago, somewhere around that time, where they were like, oh, these quote-unquote poor people have refrigerators and microwaves and ATV.
And what's wrong with that?
Yeah.
What is wrong with that?
And
at least they got food.
So then what we have right now is we have made a trade-off. When the pandemic first started, if you were there, you remember that I was saying, I don't know exactly what this balancing act that we're partaking is, and I don't know if we're making the right one, but I didn't have enough to say one way or another. Right now, I remember at one point, California had more people committing suicide because they didn't have jobs, because everything was shut down and they had no money, than actually people dying of COVID. I would like to see the government do a actual study on how many people it killed saving the people it tried to save. Because you're talking about like laptops and people not having them. We have even less people that have ham radios for the same. Everyone's running out of money. Everyone's in debt. No one has income. Good luck paying your internet bill. And so now on top of it, we have people not being educated. So not the IQ, but the EQ of the country drops. You have life expectancy drops. Would it be that surprising if, you know, right now we have almost 300,000 deaths from COVID? What if we did it the other way? We went the Swedish route, or whoever else, I suppose, and maybe we had 700,000 or 1 million. Is that worth it? If right now we're going to have, I don't know how much all this translates, but let's just say 2 million deaths as a consequence of acting the way we have versus doing it the other way and maybe only having 100,000, 200,000. If we're really going to be treating things this way, we should treat them correctly. And here's another thing to add into this. The plan of the shutdown was very helpful and very geared really towards the older population who are much more susceptible than the younger population. Right. But it seems like, as per usual, it is turning out that the young are being sacrificed for those who don't have much time left anyway.
Yeah.
It's very difficult because there are also a lot of younger people who have autoimmune disorders and who are in bed. There are a lot of elderly people who are also providing crucial care at this time. They are caregivers. They're caring for grandchildren. They are an important part of a household. So it's the thing is that I think that we have in the U.S. resources to provide for everybody. It would not be a perfect situation because we still have a virus and people are going to get sick regardless of how much money they have at their disposal. But there were ways to prevent a lot of these tragedies. In education, for example, parents came together and they figured it out. They formed homeschooling pods. They were hiring teachers who were themselves not going to work, or teachers' aides to come in and help teach the kids. That was something that the schools themselves could have done. We had situations out here in the suburbs where the schools themselves were opened up to groups of parents who were paying out the nose, I might add, for a supervised place for the kids to do remote learning. So the facilities were there, the plans were there was a willingness to do this, but the government did not, no governments stepped in to say, okay, we cannot sacrifice our children and our children's well-being, their lives, their educations, and we cannot sacrifice our country's well-being by, again, within 10 years, having a bunch of adults who cannot read, write, or have an understanding of basic history, science, or mathematics. We can't have this happen. We are going to step up and we are going to invest in our kids. Not to say that we've ever done that in the past all that well anyways, but this really should not have happened.